Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Phil. Welcome to Phil's Computer Lab. Today we're looking at another product from ICdock. It is the ICCube. This is a quad hard drive enclosure and you can install up to 4 hard drives or solid state drives. Let's have a look what's in the box. We've got the main quad enclosure, 4 drive trays. We've got a USB 3 connection cable and an eSATA connection cable, an AC to DC power adapter, a power cord, 2 sets of screws, one for 3.5-inch drives, the other one for 2.5-inch drives, and there's also a user manual. Let's have a closer look at the unit. It is mostly made out of metal. However, some parts, like the front part of the drive trays, that is made out of plastic. However, the insides of the tray is made out of metal once again. The unit is mostly matte. It's just the front covers for the trays that are made out of glossy material. Let's have a look at the back of the unit. There's a lot more going on here. The first thing that stands out is the cooling fan. Now this one is actually removable. You just press a clip down below and you can take it out. And the reason it is removable is because if you're using solid state hard drives, for example, you really don't need any air cooling. The other thing to note is that the speed of the fan can be controlled. It's got 3 settings: high, auto, and low. Here we've got the 2 connectors, one for eSATA and one for USB 3. I will talk about these in more detail when we look at some performance benchmarks. There's a power switch here. You can turn the unit on and off, and this is where the power lead from the AC to DC power adapter goes. For added security, it does support the Kensington security lock. So if you've got one of those devices, this is where you attach it. So let's have a look at how to install some drives. We've got a solid state drive and a hard drive here, and we're gonna put them into the drive trays. We have 2 sets of screws. Make sure you use the 3.5-inch screws for the SATA hard drive and the 2.5-inch screws for the solid state. To install the solid state hard drive, you need 4 of these screws. You get 16 in total. You also get 16 for the 3.5-inch drive. So either way, you can install 4 drives regardless of which type. So to install the solid state drive, you take the drive tray and you put this towards the back so that the SATA and the power connector face towards the back. So if you insert it into the unit, they should be facing towards the back. Okay, that's all ready to go. So now you take the drive tray with the solid state drive installed and you just insert it and then secure it like so. To install a 3.5-inch SATA hard drive, the installation procedure is very similar. You basically insert the drive facing towards the back so that the SATA and the power connector, when you insert it into the unit, face towards the back. The difference is that the screws now go in from the sides. So just like that, there's one here and another one there. Okay, so that one is also done. And just like before, you just insert it into the unit and close it like that. Okay, that's all done. So in total, I've got 2 SATA hard drives installed, 3.5-inch and also 2 SSDs, 2.5-inch. And the other thing I want to mention is capacity. The website states that this unit supports 10 terabyte hard drive, so you can install up to 40 terabyte and even more down the track. But that's amazing, 40 terabyte, that's a lot of storage. So what we're going to do next is look at some benchmarks and how to use this unit and how the USB 3 compares to the eSATA connector. Okay, before we go into the benchmark results, I want to spend a few moments and just explain to you my test setup. The motherboard I'm using is the Gigabyte 990FXA UD5. I'm using this motherboard because it's got USB 3 as well as eSATA ports, so we can easily compare the 2 interfaces. The other specs, we've got an FX 6300 CPU, 8 GB of RAM, a standard Radeon graphics card, and we're running Windows 10 64-bit. Now you really want to make sure that your motherboard has USB 3. If you're still stuck on USB 2, I will show you in the benchmarks what that means. You will actually lose a lot of performance, but there are ways around. You can upgrade your computer and get a USB 3 interface. So you connect it into the IC dock first, and then find the blue ports on the motherboard and plug it in. And here we go. These are all the drives showing up. We've got the 2 solid state drives, and here are the 2 SATA drives. Okay, let's have a look at the performance. So I've benchmarked one of the solid state drives, and we can see here we're getting a speed of up to just under 300 megabytes per second. So that's very, very fast. Now, do make sure that your machine has USB 3. Most computers have both types of interfaces, USB 2 and USB 3. Here we've got a picture of how the unit performs with a USB 2 interface, so we can see there's a massive drop in performance. So the bottom line is, make sure you plug it into the blue USB 3 interface. Okay, let's have a look how the unit compares with the eSATA interface. So you take the supplied eSATA cable and you just connect it into the connector that says eSATA on the unit, and the other end goes into the motherboard, and this motherboard does have one eSATA port. I have to say, this was the only motherboard that I own with an eSATA port, so it seems that this interface is not that common. Definitely not as common as the USB 3. Okay, here we have the setup with the eSATA interface, and we can see all 4 drives show up as well. There's one technical detail. Your eSATA controller needs to support what's called port multiplication, and most controllers do support that, but you have to install the drivers. So for this build I installed a fresh copy of Windows 10 64-bit evaluation, and out of the box only one drive would show up. So the solution is to install the driver for your SATA controller. So I went to the Gigabyte website and it had a download. The controller on my motherboard is from Marvell, and you just install that and then all 4 drives show up. In terms of performance, bottom line, eSATA is a lot faster. We're getting just under 400 megabytes per second, so that is quite a boost compared to USB 3. Now, if your desktop doesn't have USB 3 or eSATA, there are lots of things you can do. You can get these expansion cards. So here we've got a USB 3 expansion card, and it just goes in a normal PCI Express interface. It gives you 2 USB 3 ports, and same thing goes for eSATA. Also a PCI Express card, and these are very cheap. They go for around $10 on eBay, so if your machine doesn't have one of these interfaces, it's not the end of the world. So don't fear if you're stuck on USB 2 speeds, just buy one of these and you get a nice performance boost. I've also run a benchmark on these 2 cards. The eSATA PCI Express controller performs a little bit slower compared to the eSATA controller that the motherboard comes with. However, the PCI Express USB 3 interface actually does a little bit better than the USB 3 port that comes with the motherboard. In general, with the performance, if you are buying one of these units and your results are different, there are lots of reasons for that. There are lots of chipsets, Marvell, Intel, AS, Media, and so on. And also implementation, how are they connected to the motherboard, how many PCI Express lanes. It can even be that if you plug in a PCI Express 4X card in one of your slots, that you lose USB performance. So the bottom line, and without going into too much technical detail, is that it depends on what motherboard and what components your computer has. So the performance that you get might be a little bit lower, but also might be higher than mine. The motherboard I'm using is quite a few years old, so if you're using a current Skylake system, chances are you're getting better performance than I was able to get in my tests. Now, when using 4 hard drives, you might be wondering, well, what about a RAID? And this unit is a hard drive enclosure. It's not a NAS or a RAID controller. However, you could just use the built-in software RAID that comes with Windows. It's called Storage Spaces, and you create what's called a storage pool. So if I've got my 2 drives here, I can just create a pool, and I can then create a RAID array. For example, I can create a mirrored RAID array where each drive is being copied, and if one drive fails, I still have another backup. or you can do a parity RAID with 3 or more hard drives. So although the unit doesn't have RAID, just go with storage spaces. It is built in Windows, and I've been actually using that for quite some time, and it works really well. Okay guys, that's it. Let's wrap it up. So I'm very pleased with this unit. I didn't really have any issues. It does exactly what it says on the box. Two things I haven't mentioned yet. There are some tiny LEDs here that indicate that the drives are running, and also when you access the drives, they show drive activity. And colors, this unit is available in black and in white, so be careful that you order the right version. In terms of performance, between USB 3 and eSATA, eSATA is a little bit faster, but USB 3 is more readily available in most machines. The only thing to watch out for is that you don't plug it into a USB 2 interface. You're gonna miss out a lot of performance. And if your computer doesn't have USB 3 or eSATA, you can just upgrade the machine with a cheap PCI Express expansion card. And finally, what is the price? I had a look at Amazon and Newegg. You're looking at around $180, and the unit is backed by a 3-year warranty. That's it guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon in another video.